Thanks, you're amazing, Nina Echo you. G'day blokes and Sheilas, Tank Hunter here, how are you? Listen, I know it's Saturday, it's a beautiful day, sitting in the stands, kind of a little bit bored waiting for the tanks, getting some rays, but that was pathetic. Let's try that again, shall we? G'day blokes and Sheilas, it's Tank Hunter, how are you all going? That includes you people down there. I know you can hear me, I'm not quiet. And they gave me a mic. I don't know why.
I have a very loud voice.
But they gave me a mic anyway. So let's try that again for you over there that didn't think I was paying attention. Yeah. Now you're just early. G'day blokes and Sheilas, it's a Tank Hunter, how you all going? Better. So, Canada at war, huh? Yeah. When they first told me that it was Canada at war, I thought the NHL season started again or something like that. But apparently you guys are pretty good at doing the whole fighting thing, though you do write sorry on your bullets, which is really sweet, I think. And apparently you guys have been involved in more things than Vimy Ridge. Yeah, see, I pay attention, boss. Yeah, Vimy Ridge, yeah, I'm on it. So, who here follows me on Instagram or Facebook? I know you do, you're a beautiful creature. The rest of you? Shame. Shame. So you need to go on Facebook and Instagram, you type in The Tank Hunter, you hit that like, and then we can be friends. So who here has been to a Tank Saturday before?
My first time!
Who here has not been to a Tank Saturday before? And who here didn't want to answer the question from a strange talking person? Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. You're looking at me weird? Yeah, I can see you. My sunglasses are better than yours.
I don't have any!
Not you! The guy that didn't want to talk to me because I have a weird accent. I'll get subtitles for you next time. Maybe. I don't know how it's going to work. So, any of you have ear protection? If you don't, it's okay. After today, you won't need ear protection because you won't be able to hear anything anyway. Now, the tank drivers, they're great people, but they're also children. So if you don't give them lots of cheers and claps and support, they'll take their vehicle, they'll go home, and they'll go have a cry. And then Jeremy has to make sure that they're okay and that people really do love them to get them to the next show. So, can we show how we can clap and cheer for the tank drivers so we know they come back? Ready? 1, 2, 3. I'm still watching you down there. That was like a 6 out of 10.
Museum President Al Duffy driving a Canadian military truck, a Model T Ford. Over 115,000 of these vehicles were produced for the Allies, the United States, Canada, and Great Britain in the First World War. The story of mechanization and the story of tanks, it goes back over 100 years. Yes, Canada didn't have tanks in the First World War. We trained with the British, but our armies began to become mechanized. You can see on the door there, it says WD with the arrow, that's War Department. So companies like Ford, and this was built right here in Canada, right here in Ontario at the Ford plant during the First World War, they would provide these trucks for logistics, moving supplies around. There's ambulance variants. You can find a Model T ambulance in the MVCC that you can go up close to and touch and have a look at. And this was, they took civilian vehicles at the time, they simplified them, and they used them for military use over 100 years ago. Now, these vehicles, when they built these vehicles, automotive industry hadn't standardized everything like we know in a car now today. The accelerator, believe it or not. All right, so now Mr. Duffy's going to demonstrate how he starts this First World War Model T Ford Army pickup truck.
This is how he gets to start his. This is how he has to start that like this. So it just terminates
Don't let it run away on you. Also notice that Al has to get in the passenger side door. The vehicle is so small, you can't get in the door that is right beside the driver. You have to get in this side. And all those that were built in the United States only have that one door. Those that were built in Canada, you can tell them right away because they have a door on both sides. And that's because Canada actually built them and exported them throughout the Commonwealth during the First World War. It was just cheaper to make a body with a door on. But yet, it's not a tank. This is actually a universal carrier. Maneuverable, light. It can also tow artillery pieces, carry equipment, ammunition. There's ambulance variations on the Bren gun carrier. It's one of the most common vehicles for the Commonwealth of the Second World War, and exceptionally maneuverable. Pivot.
You carried away. Oh no.
So here you see Steve, our driver. Wave, Steve. And then over there would be the co-driver, and this little section here is where the Bren gun would be mounted, so it could fire ahead. A lot of the times they would actually have the Bren gun out so they could fire in more directions. And in the back is where the cargo or the infantry would be. These vehicles were so useful, believe it or not, after the Second World War, the British continued to use them up until 1981. So definitely an iconic Second World War vehicle, and this one produced right here in Canada. Thanks, Steve. This is an M4 A2E8, or sometimes called the Easy 8 Sherman. It was a late war Sherman, came into use in late 1944 and 1945 during the Second World War. This is one of the, at the end of the war, this is one of the tanks that Canada would have been using in the Second World War. makes it a tank? Well, obviously you can tell it's much larger, but you can see that it has a turret with a crew inside and a main weapon. And this weapon here, look at the size of it. This is a 76 millimeter main weapon. It could take out almost any tank of the Second World War. You know, there's all these stories about, you know, it couldn't take out the Tiger. The Tiger had weak spots, the Panther had weak spots, and the Canadians who served in these Shermans knew how to take out German tanks. So, it has a 76 millimeter main weapon. It's fully operational. The cool story about these tanks, as we talk about the Second World War, is that this was put together in the United States for Canada. But our economies were connected. The main unit, your transmission unit, the gearbox, it was actually made in Montreal. And then it was sent to the United States, and the vehicle was all put together. Many times Shermans, let's do it, yes, show them the turret. As I said, this is fully operational. And they're not cranking in there, they're actually using the it's like a joystick for the traverse. Look how fast that can move. And this is an advantage that the Shermans had over most of the German equipment. A lot of the German tanks and equipment, they would be actually hand cranking the turrets, whereas the Sherman had a turret that they could actually, there we get the other side of the tank, that they could traverse very easily and automatically. Also, it had a very early stabilization system where they could put the gun on the target, and as they're going over terrain, it would keep the gun close to the target, which was really new in the Second World War. This is one of two of our operational Shermans, and this one, actually very famous, he's been in a lot of movies. This is Bart. Go on the gun. Okay, so let's hear it for Bart and their crew. Canadian Second World War M4 Sherman. You can see on the tank there, they have all sorts of ration boxes. Even on the back of the tank, they have their cooking pots. Tankers of the Second World War had to carry almost everything with them into battle. Their clothes, extra fuel, rations, all had to be carried on the tank. There's not a lot of room inside the vehicle itself or in the turret. So that's why you see a lot of these vehicles have a lot of external kits strapped onto the side, and that didn't change. You'll see that in modern military vehicles today. The flag that's flying is not the flag of the province of Ontario. That is actually the red ensign. That was Canada's national flag up until 1965. So when they served in the Second World War, that's the flag that they would have served under. Now let's have a look at both of our Second War vehicles of today's show. Bart's going to come back around. Here we have the Universal Carrier. And the M4A2 E8 Sherman Bart. And yes, in the museum we have examples of Second World War. The ones driving in on Civvy Street, the ones in parking lots. They take a lot 50s up until the 1980s because they were so useful. There were many variants of them made. This one here is a 1953 pattern, or CDN1. And as we continued to use them through those many decades, because a Jeep is just such a useful vehicle, there were different marks and different advances, CDN2, CDN3, right up to the late 70s and used by the Canadian Armed Forces into the 1980s. They were not just used for moving officers around or cargo. They were actually used by the Canadian Armed Forces in the Cold War period for reconnaissance, or what we know as recce. So they would have a light reconnaissance troop that would be in these M38A1s with a high-powered radio, and their job was to sneak and peek, to go up, move ahead, and to report back to the main force on what the enemy dispositions were and what they saw there. And actually the volunteer today is Rick Spratley, and he trained in those buildings over there with the Ontario Regiment in these M38A1s. Say hi, Rick. So how fitting you get to drive today. All right, so that's the Jeep. So once again, so from the 1950s to the 1980s, Canada, and their heavy reconnaissance. So again, so this is the M113.5 Command and Reconnaissance Vehicle, a very long name. It was actually developed and built by the same company that builds the M113 Armored Personnel Carrier. If you have, if you go to the gift shop, you can get a ride in one of those today, or you may have already had a ride in that larger infantry carrier version of the M113. But this one was specifically built for reconnaissance. Notice how fast it was? Trust me, they didn't get through all of the gears. It did have some defense. You can see the crew commander up there. And it actually has a 50 caliber machine gun that would be mounted under control of the commander. Unique for a carrier, that commander is actually sitting in a tiny little turret. So if they get into a difficult situation, the commander can drop down in the turret, and from controls inside, you can see the vision blocks all the way around the commander's cupola. He has 360 he can turn that gun 360 all the way around the vehicle and have the firepower of a 50 caliber machine gun. Now, if you've never seen or heard a 50 caliber machine gun, it's basically a cannon. It can blast through walls, it can blast through most vehicles' armor. Super fast. At the back, it had a third crew person, and that was the observer. And their seat's actually looking back, because this is a sneak and peek vehicle. So they're looking for the enemy, or looking to report on the enemy and then get back to their lines. Very fast, only used by two countries, used by Canada and the Kingdom of the Netherlands. So very unique Canadian vehicle in our history. Let's hear it for the Lynx team, guys. And what's really unique about this vehicle, but built by Canadians. So you can see it has a driver, and you see those little things in front of the driver? Those are vision blocks. So drivers can, all right, let's hear it for the Cougar crew then. So lots of the military vehicles, when you see those, imagine that the driver, and you've seen it on a few of them, can actually put the hatch down, be safe inside the vehicle, and can see the world out in front of them from those vision blocks. So we have a turret. It has a loader, a gunner, loader gunner and a commander. A lot of Canadians trained on these vehicles that when they weren't deployed, but they actually were used in conflicts such as former Yugoslavia and Bosnia. Canada retired them from service in 2004. They were completely removed from Canadian service, and then they were sold to the African Union. You've heard about the European Union? Well, we sold a lot of these to the African Union, which is a collection of countries trying to keep peace on the continent of Africa. We also sold a lot of them to Uruguay, and they're still being used by those countries to this day on internal security and peacekeeping missions. But this was the replacement for the Lynx. I called it an AVGP, Armored Vehicle General Purpose. Why does it have a long name? Because similar to the 113, they didn't just build this, they used this chassis, and they have different variants. There's a variant with a machine gun turret. There's a variant that is for just moving troops around as a troop carrier. And in front of the museum out on the road, there are two special variants. Those are MRTs, or mobile repair teams. They are for helping other vehicles. Think of it as your tank breaks down and you need some help, someone to change a wheel, help you with a gearbox. And the two examples that are in front of the museum, they do run, we drove them there today, are the only two examples left in the world of that Canadian technology, the AVGP, so you might want to check those out. All right, this is the Canadian Cougar. The M38A1G. The M113.5 CNR Lynx, and the Armored Vehicle General Purpose Cougar, built right in London, Ontario. Very fast, very unique. Afghanistan conflicts. It's longer than an M113. They actually cut the hull in half and extended it with extra road wheels. You can also see that it has a turret that has a 30 caliber and a 50 caliber machine gun, as well as smoke grenade launchers. So it gives the M113 platform so much more capability. The engine was up. Canadian ingenuity. So this, the Canadian Armed Forces have and the Canadian built and designed LAV-3. This is a 50-ton main battle tank known as the Centurion. completely restored here at the museum while we were forced to be closed, with the Centurion. The first prototype came out in 1945, so this was birthed of all the lessons of the Second World War. But this tank would go on to serve, and the Centurion is one of the most successful main battle tanks in military history. Being used in Korea, Vietnam, used by the Israelis, Australians, Canadians. This particular one is a Centurion Mark V with a 90mm main weapon, what they call a 20-pounder main weapon. Now how about that for the Centurion team, ladies and gentlemen? And actually the driver, here we have Malcolm Towery, and he was the lead on this restoration. Years ago, this was, like I said, it was a gate guard. It was sitting outside. And he took it on as his personal project and worked on it for years, including the 2 years of pandemic. And he's the driver today. Malcolm, give us wave. One of the most successful main battle tanks, and actually battle tested in conflict after conflict. Canada used these to replace the Shermans. Now, Canada used Shermans, at least for training, up until 1971. But obviously, by the 1960s, the Sherman was long in the tooth and needed replacement. These 1950s main battle tanks were constantly upgraded, and Canada used these in our forces in Germany during the Cold War until 1977. And this is the only running example. There's the main gun. It's trying to get me. No, I'll go this way. Okay. Okay, they've got the turret obviously fully operational, and this is what's truly amazing. They actually got the stabilization system on this turret and gun fully operational. I better get them out of here before they actually fire. Not only is the ground shaking, but the air shakes around it as it moves. Wow. The engine is so powerful. And then the Centurion that has a 105mm main weapon. Ladies and gentlemen, and for the crew, the Canadian Leopard C2. Now the Leopard tank is a German tank. It was developed by the Germans. Just as the British were developing the Centurion at the end of the Second World War, the Germans continued to design and learn from the war and design new tanks. Some of them were just on a drawing board, never made it because of how the war ended for them. In the 1950s, and into the 1960s, when West Germany all of a sudden was the ally of the Western Allies, we put them back to work, and they were designing the next generation main battle tank based on some of those plans and those lessons that they had learned from the Second World War. So this is actually the grandson of like the Tiger tank right here, the Leopard 1 main battle tank. And today we have the Leopard 2, and our Canadian Armed Forces are using that vehicle. But this had a lot of long service. So the first Leopard 1s replaced the Centurions in our battle group in Germany in 1977. And they continued to be used, and then even in a training role, the Leopard C-12s only came out of service in 2017. Such a great tank, not only on the battlefield, but also a great training tank to move people on to the Leopard 2. You can see on the outside it has some applique armor. So we were talking about the spall liners earlier, the armor that's on the inside. You have the thick steel armor, and we had that spall liner on the inside. You can see the C2 has applique armor on the exterior, so it's thick rubber armor that gives that hull that extra defense. You have to penetrate through that first. Also, if you had a missile or a shell, it would most likely explode on the applique armor instead of exploding on the actual turret, causing it to spall and injure those who are inside. An incredibly powerful engine. Believe it or not, this museum has 5 operational Leopard tanks. There's no other museum in the world that has 5 operational Leopard tanks, ladies and gentlemen. And this is very special to us because this is our Canadian one. If you're close enough, like I said, the engine is so powerful, it shakes the air around the tank, and if it passes you, you actually feel that in your chest because the air you're breathing is shaking. All right, we're gonna have a 2 look. Canada's main battle tanks from the 1960s into the 21st century. Chieftain Mark 5. Sorry. Centurion Mark 5, sorry, and the Canadian Leopard C2.
बैटल, हाँ बैटल करेंगे, मतलब गन चलाएंगे अपनी। नहीं इसके अंदर ये नहीं है, खाली आवाज़ आएगी, गोली नहीं है, खाली वो शेल है।
Ladies and gentlemen, if you really like the show today, every month until October we have a special Tank Saturday. Check out tankmuseum.ca for our dates and themes. You can also get a poster, a Tank Saturday poster, for free in the museum proper. It has all the dates on them. This special commemoration of Canada's service next month in August. The theme is Blitzkrieg, the Second World War. If you'd like to see some of the more vintage vehicles in our contender, it is a massive 56-ton American main battle tank, the M60A3. This Cold War monster was entered into the is Chrysler built, believe it or not, in the United States. It is one of the heavier tanks in our collection, and it'll be the first contender in World of Tanks Battle Royale. M60, move up to me. So where does the M60 get its strength? It's massive armor. Look at the front glacis plate on this. Almost any hit to the front glacis plate of the M60 will not penetrate, will probably just bounce off. That's where its strength is, that frontal armor on this massively heavy main battle tank. Also, if the soft spots would actually be the engine deck at the back, and although it has better armor than its opponent that you're about to meet, it can be penetrated on the sides. You can see the commander up there. Wave, Ken. Its main weapon is a 105mm main cannon. That's a NATO standard. Very powerful. Battle Royale. Leopard, take the field. Out. See who the M60 will be going up against. It's one of our Leopard tanks. Similar to the Canadian Leopard C2, this is a Belgian Army Leopard 1A5. As I said, still used just like the M60 by allies all over the world as a main battle tank. Where are the strengths of the Leopard? Obviously, its speed. It is 10 tons lighter than the American M60. So it does not have that strong armor. Its strongest armor is on the front, but can be penetrated if there's a good hit. The weapon, they're perfectly equal. It's a 105mm main weapon. So when it comes to firepower, they're both evenly matched. So what we're asking you to do is they're going to go out to the field and using the best of their abilities with the features we have on the field, they're going to use the strengths of their tank to try to defeat the other tank. So you have to pay attention not to which tank you like the most, you have to pay attention to how did the tank crew use the features? When did they get off a hit? Where did they hit the enemy tank? Then they're going to come back here after the finale, after the battle, and you are going to decide which team won Tank Saturday Battle Royale. Are you ready for this? Great job by the M60. You see that it's side facing towards the Leopard, but he's using the feature there. First shot off by the M60. Quick report by the Leopard. Leopard tracking the M60. M60 got a shot off, but completely missed. Leo hitting the M60 on the run. Great position by the, look at the Leo. Much lower profile, can barely see it in a feature. M60 is moving behind this feature. Great shot by the Leo. Here you can see the M60 gunner, he's getting down trying to track that Leo. But the Leo, oh, that's probably a good hit by the M60 as the Leo came out of his cover. Can the M60 get behind that cover before the Leo gets in position and gets off a shot? Both great shot by the Leo, but it looks like the M60 was behind the hill. Just a turret showing on that M60, huge frontal armor. Back and forth, trading shots, probably would just be bouncing off each other's turrets. Leo's tracking the engine deck of that M60. Can he get a shot off before the M60 can get turned around? M60 firing on the move. Leopard again in that great position, lower profile tank. Really enjoy using that roundabout at the end of the field to hide his weaker armor. Great shot by the M60. If he was on target, 2 shots. M60 fires again, but missing the target. Look at that move by the M60, getting its turret right around towards the Leopard, but Leopard quickly in position with its speed advantage. Now they're both in a haul down position. Good job by the M60 there, protecting its armor. Both trading shots. M60 now charging to the Leopard's position. M60 gun tracking the Leopard. That Leopard really likes that position in the north side of the field. That Leopard going back and forth. He's trying to track the target. Where can he hit the M60? Great shot. 60 again in a good position. Oh, it's firing. I don't think the leopard's over there.